The stars had always been beautiful too. She pressed her small hands against the cold glass of the observation window and watched them pass by like tiny diamonds scattered across black cloth. She was only 8 years old, but she had already seen more of the galaxy than most humans ever would. Her father stood behind her with a gentle smile on his face. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair at his temples. As the human ambassador to the Galactic Council, he had spent 15 years building bridges between Earth and the alien civilizations that filled the universe. Now, he was taking his daughter on her first official diplomatic journey. "Are we almost there, Father?" asked without turning from the window. "A few more hours," replied. He walked over and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Are you excited to see the council station?" Nodded quickly. "I want to see the gardens you told me about, the ones with the blue flowers that sing." Laughed softly. "The melodic roses of, yes, they are beautiful. I will take you there myself." The diplomatic vessel Harmony was not a large ship, but it was comfortable. It carried a crew of 42 humans, including diplomats, translators, security officers, and support staff. They were traveling through what was supposed to be safe space, a protected corridor that all species respected. But safety was an illusion. Captain Minu was on the bridge when the alarm started screaming. He was a serious man who had served in Earth's space fleet for 20 years. He had never lost a ship, and he did not plan to start now. "Report," he shouted as red lights flashed across every console. "3 ships dropping out of hyperspace," his tactical officer said. Her name was, and her fingers moved fast across her controls. "They are not responding to our identification requests. Configuration matches. Military vessels." Minu felt his stomach turn cold. The Empire was not friendly to humans. They saw humanity as insects, newcomers to the galactic stage who did not deserve their seat at the council. But they had never attacked a diplomatic vessel before. "Raise shields. Send a distress signal on all frequencies," Minu ordered, "and get Ambassador to the bridge." The ships were fast. They surrounded the Harmony in minutes, their weapons glowing with charged energy. Each ship was 3 times the size of the human vessel, covered in sharp angles and dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Arrived on the bridge with holding his hand. His face was calm, but his eyes showed concern. "What is happening, Captain?" he asked. "Warships, Ambassador. They have us surrounded and are not responding to communication." Stepped forward and looked at the main screen. The ships hung in space like predators waiting to strike. "Open a channel," he said. "I will speak to them." Opened the channel and spoke with the voice he had used in 100 diplomatic situations. "This is Ambassador of Earth, aboard the diplomatic vessel Harmony. We are traveling under the protection of Galactic Council treaties. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." For a long moment there was only silence. Then a face appeared on the screen. There were tall beings with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces. They had no hair, and their mouths were filled with small, sharp teeth. This one wore the black uniform of a military commander, decorated with medals and symbols of rank. "I am High Commander," the alien said. His voice was cold and filled with contempt. "Your treaties mean nothing to us. You are in space now." "We are in the protected corridor," replied firmly. "This space belongs to no single species. It is neutral territory." Smiled, and it was an ugly thing to see. The corridor belongs to whoever is strong enough to take it, and humans are not strong. You are weak. You are soft. You do not belong among the stars. We have done nothing to offend the Empire. Let us pass in peace, and there will be no conflict." "No conflict," laughed. "There is already conflict, Ambassador. Your very existence is an offense to us. You spread across the galaxy like a disease, talking of peace and cooperation while you steal resources and influence that should belong to greater species." Minu stepped closer to and spoke quietly. "Ambassador, we cannot win a fight against those ships. Our weapons are no match for theirs." Nodded slightly. He knew this. He had always believed that words were stronger than weapons, that understanding could bridge any gap between species. But looking at its face, he saw no room for understanding. He saw only hatred. "What do you want?" asked. "I want to send a message," replied. "To all the species in the galaxy who think humans are worthy of respect, I want to show them what you really are." The transmission cut off, and seconds later, the ships opened fire. Not with their main weapons, but with precise strikes that disabled the Harmony's engines and shields. The ship shook violently, and people fell to the floor. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, shouted. "Engines are gone, we are dead in space." Minu grabbed the arms of his chair. "All hands prepare for boarding. Security teams to defensive positions." But the security teams never had a chance. The boarding parties came through the hull like ghosts, cutting through metal with plasma torches and overwhelming the human defenders with superior numbers and weapons. The fight lasted less than 10 minutes. Held close as the soldiers stormed the bridge. She was shaking, her face buried against his chest. "It is okay," he whispered to her, even though he knew it was a lie. "I am here, I will protect you." The soldiers grabbed them and forced them apart, screamed for her father as two dragged her away. "No," shouted. He fought against the soldiers holding him, but they were too strong. "She is just a child, please." Walked onto the bridge, stepping over the bodies of fallen humans. He looked at with those 4 cold eyes. "A child," repeated. "Yes, that is exactly why she is useful." They took everyone who survived. 42 humans had been on the ship. Only 31 were still alive. They were put in cells aboard's flagship, dark metal rooms with no windows and only a dim light in the ceiling. Was kept separate from the others. He was put in a cell by himself, where he could do nothing but wait and worry about his daughter. He called her name through the walls, but there was no answer. Hours passed, then a full day. Did not sleep. He could not eat the strange food they pushed through the slot in his door. He just sat in the corner and thought about her smile, about the way she laughed when he told her stories, about how she loved to look at the stars. On the second day, soldiers came for him. They dragged him through the corridors of the ship to a large room filled with lights and cameras. It was a broadcast studio. And there, in the center of the room, she was standing alone on a raised platform. Her hands were bound in front of her, and her face was wet with tears. But when she saw her father, she tried to smile. "Father," she called out. Tried to run to her, but the soldiers held him back. "I am here. Everything will be okay." Stepped into the light, positioning himself between the camera and the child. His face was calm, almost pleased. "Today, the galaxy will see the truth about humans," he announced. "They will see that you are not worthy of protection, that your treaties and your council seats mean nothing, that you can be broken just like any other weak species." "Please," begged. His diplomatic training was gone, replaced by a father's desperate fear. "Take me instead. Do whatever you want of me, just let her go. She is innocent." Looked at him with something like amusement. "Her innocence is the point, Ambassador. This is how we teach the galaxy a lesson." The broadcast began. It was sent to every corner of the known universe, carried on every public channel. Billions of beings across thousands of worlds stopped what they were doing to watch. On Earth, people gathered around screens in their homes, in public squares, in government buildings. They saw standing alone, small and afraid. They heard speak his words of hatred. They watched as pleaded for his daughter's life. Admiral was in the Central Command building in Seoul when the broadcast reached Earth. She was a woman of 55 years, with silver hair and a face marked by decades of military service. She had fought in 3 wars and led fleets to victory against enemies that others thought unbeatable, but nothing had prepared her for what she saw on that screen. The room was silent. Every officer stood frozen, watching. "Turn it off," someone whispered. "No," said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "We watch, all of us. We bear witness." On the screen raised his weapon. It was a plasma blade glowing white-hot. Looked at her father one last time. "I love you," she said. Screamed. And then it was over. The broadcast continued for a few more seconds. Turned to face the camera, the weapon still in his hand. "Let this be a warning to all who think humans matter. They do not. They never will." The screen went dark. On Earth, the silence lasted for exactly 12 seconds. Then it was replaced by something else. Not grief, not shock. Those would come later. What came first was something older, something that lived deep in the human heart. It was rage. Admiral walked to the communication console. Her officers watched her, waiting for orders, waiting for direction. She pressed a single button that connected her to every military installation on Earth and in orbit. "This is Admiral," she said. Her voice did not shake. "Activate Protocol Omega, wake the silent fleet. We warned them, they did not listen." She paused, and when she spoke again, every human who heard her felt the words in their bones. "Now they will learn why the galaxy should fear us." The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest meeting space in the known universe. It hung in orbit around a neutral planet, a massive station shaped like a ring with a hollow center where representatives from over 300 species gathered to discuss the fate of civilizations. Light filtered through crystal walls, and the seats rose in tiers like the inside of a great bowl. Today, every seat was full. The murder of a human child had been broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, and now everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Some came with sympathy. Most came with curiosity. A few came with quiet satisfaction, pleased to see the young human species humbled. The delegation sat in their section with pride on their faces. High Commander was not among them, but his message had been received clearly. The humans were weak. The humans could be broken. The galaxy had nothing to fear from Earth. Ambassador represented humanity on the council. He was an older man with a calm face and steady hands. He had spent 40 years building relationships with alien species, learning their languages, understanding their cultures. He believed in peace. He believed in cooperation. But today, he was not the one who would speak for Earth. The doors of the chamber opened, and Admiral walked in. She wore the full dress uniform of Earth's military, decorated with medals from campaigns that most of the galaxy knew nothing about. Her silver hair was pulled back, and her face showed no emotion. She walked alone, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence of the chamber. The Speaker of the Council, a being from a species called the, stood at the central podium. He was tall and thin, with golden skin and 3 delicate arms. "This session is called to address the incident involving the Empire and a human diplomatic vessel," the speaker announced. "The human delegation has requested time to speak." "We have not finished our statement," the ambassador protested. His name was, and he wore the same expression of contempt that had shown on the broadcast. "The incident was a necessary correction. Humans have expanded too quickly, taken too many resources, demanded too much respect. We simply reminded them of their place." "By killing a child," someone called from the tiers. It was a delegate from the collective, a species known for their dedication to justice. "That was not correction, that was murder." "It was a message," replied coldly, "one that the galaxy needed to hear." Admiral reached the center of the chamber and stopped. She did not look at any of the delegates. She simply stood, waiting. The speaker gestured to her. "Admiral of Earth, you may speak." For a moment she said nothing. The silence stretched out, uncomfortable and heavy. Then she reached into her uniform and pulled out a small device. She set it on the podium, and a holographic image appeared above it. The image showed her laughing, playing in a garden on Earth, running through flowers with her arms spread wide, her face full of joy. She could not have been more than 7 years old in the recording. Her name was Park, said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. She was 8 years old. She liked to watch the stars. She wanted to be a pilot when she grew up. She collected small rocks from every planet she visited. The chamber was completely silent. She was not a soldier. She was not a diplomat. She was not a threat to anyone. Looked up now, her eyes moving across the rows of alien delegates. She was a child who trusted that the galaxy was a good place, that the beings who filled it were capable of kindness. She turned to face the delegation directly. You murdered her to send a message. Very well, we have received your message. Now you will receive ours. Leaned forward in his seat. Is that a threat, Admiral? You should be careful. The Empire commands the largest military force in this sector. Your species has been part of the galactic community for barely a century. You do not have the strength to threaten us. You are correct, replied. We do not have the strength you think we have more. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged confused glances. When humanity first reached the stars, we found a galaxy filled with war, continued. Species fighting over resources, over territory, over ancient grudges that no one remembered starting. We saw what military power did to civilizations, how it corrupted them, how it consumed them. She paused, letting her words settle. So we made a choice. We chose to present ourselves as peaceful, as cooperative, as willing to work within the rules that the Council established. We built hospitals instead of warships. We sent teachers instead of soldiers. We became what the galaxy expected us to be. And now you pay the price for that weakness, said with a cruel smile. That is what you believe, said. But you are wrong, you see. While we were building hospitals and schools, while we were sending diplomats and scientists to every corner of the galaxy, we were also building something else. In secret, in the dark spaces between stars where no one watches. She pressed another button on her device, and the hologram changed. Now it showed a map of the galaxy, with Earth's location marked in blue. For 90 years, we have been preparing, not for conquest, not for empire, but for the day when someone would decide that our kindness was weakness, for the day when someone would hurt our children and expect us to do nothing. Red dots began appearing on the map, hundreds of them, then thousands. They appeared in asteroid fields, in nebulae, in dead systems that no one visited. They formed a network that spread across an entire sector of the galaxy. What is this? The speaker asked, his 3 arms moving nervously. This is the Silent Fleet, answered. 12,000 warships, each one more powerful than anything they have ever built. Hidden, waiting, ready. The chamber exploded into noise. Delegates shouted questions and accusations. Some demanded proof. Others called for immediate action against Earth. The delegation sat in stunned silence, their expressions frozen between disbelief and fear. Waited for the noise to die down. We did not build this fleet to attack anyone. We built it to protect ourselves, to protect our children, to ensure that no one would ever think they could harm us without consequence. She turned back to face. You have 72 hours to deliver High Commander and every soldier who participated in the attack on our vessel. They will face trial on Earth for the murder of Park and the deaths of 11 other humans who died during the assault. They will receive fair judgment under our laws. You cannot demand this, said. His voice was less confident now. The Council. The Council did nothing while a child was murdered on live broadcast, interrupted. The Council watched and did nothing. We are done waiting for the Council. The speaker raised his hands, trying to restore order. Admiral, please, there are procedures, treaties. We can negotiate. There is no negotiation. His voice was like steel. 72 hours. If and his soldiers are not delivered to us by then, the Silent Fleet will wake, and we will come for them ourselves. She picked up her device and turned to leave. As she walked toward the doors, She spoke one last time without looking back. For 90 years, humanity has been kind. We have been patient. We have been peaceful. Do not mistake that for weakness. Do not mistake mercy for inability. We chose to be gentle because we hoped the galaxy would be gentle in return. She reached the doors and stopped. You have shown us that we were wrong. Now you will see what humanity becomes when kindness fails. The doors closed behind her. The chamber remained in chaos for hours after she left. Delegates argued about what to do. Some demanded that the Council condemn Earth and authorize military action. Others pointed out that if was telling the truth about the silent fleet, military action would be suicide. The delegate quietly suggested that maybe, just maybe, they had brought this on themselves. Returned to his ship and contacted the High Command. He told them everything. The response was exactly what he expected. They are bluffing, the High Chancellor declared. 12,000 warships, hidden for 90 years. Impossible. No species could keep such a secret. This is a desperate attempt to frighten us into surrender. But what if it is true? Asked. It is not true. Humans are weak. They have always been weak. This is the final proof of it. They resort to lies because they have nothing else. The High Chancellor ordered increased patrols around space. He ordered the fleet to maintain high alert, but he did not order anyone to surrender. That would mean admitting that they had done something wrong. That would mean showing weakness. And they did not show weakness. On Earth, Admiral returned to Central Command. She walked through corridors filled with soldiers who stood as she passed, who looked at her with a mixture of respect and something else. Hope, perhaps, or maybe just the knowledge that finally, after a century of pretending to be less than they were, humanity was showing its true face. She entered the command center, where dozens of officers monitored screens that showed every corner of human space. Ambassador was waiting for her. The council is in chaos, he said. Half of them think you were bluffing, the other half are terrified. Good, they should be. Hesitated. Is it true, the silent fleet, all those years? She looked at him. They had known each other for 30 years, had worked together to build bridges with alien civilizations. He had believed, as she once had, that peace was always the answer. It is true, she said quietly. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier trained in secret, we hoped we would never need them. We prayed that the galaxy would give us a reason to let them sleep forever. And now we wait. She turned to look at the main screen, which showed a countdown timer, 71 hours and 43 minutes remaining. We give them their chance. We offer them mercy they did not offer us. And if they refuse? Admiral was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with something that might have been sorrow. Then we show them what happens when you make humanity angry. Nodded slowly. He understood. They all understood. For 90 years, Earth had played the part of the peaceful newcomer, the gentle species that wanted nothing more than to cooperate and coexist. But that had always been a mask, a choice, a hope that the better angels of the galaxy would prevail. That hope had died with Park. The countdown continued. Across human space, families gathered together. Soldiers reported to their stations. Ships that had hidden in darkness began their final preparations. And in the depths of dead systems where no one ever looked, 12,000 warships waited for the signal that would wake them from their long sleep. The galaxy had made its choice. Now it would face the consequences. Sat alone in his cell aboard the ship. He had not moved for hours. He had not eaten. He had not slept. He simply sat in the corner with his back against the cold metal wall and stared at nothing. His daughter was gone, his beautiful with her bright eyes and her endless questions about the stars. She was gone, and he had been forced to watch it happen. The image played over and over in his mind. Her small face, her last words, the flash of the plasma blade. He had spent his whole life believing in diplomacy, believing that understanding and patience could solve any problem, that if you just talked long enough, you could find common ground with anyone. He had been a fool. The door to his cell opened, and a guard threw something inside. It was a piece of bread and a container of water. Did not look at it. "The High Command has rejected your planet's demands," the guard said with satisfaction in his voice. "Your fleet is a lie. Everyone knows it. In a few days, you will be executed alongside the rest of your crew. A fitting end for a species that does not belong among the stars." The door closed, remained motionless. But deep inside him, something had changed. The man who had dedicated his life to peace was gone. In his place was something harder, something colder. A father who had lost everything and no longer cared what happened next. Somewhere across the galaxy, Admiral stood in the command center and watched the countdown reach 0. "Time is up," she said. Her voice was calm, final. "Status of the silent fleet." "All ships report ready," an officer named replied. He was young, barely 30 years old, but he had trained his entire adult life for this moment. 12,422 vessels, fully armed and crewed, awaiting your order. Nodded slowly. She had hoped it would not come to this. She had prayed in her own way that they would see reason, that they would choose life over pride. But some species only understood one language. "Open a channel to all ships," she ordered, "and to all human worlds." The communication officer activated the system, stood before the camera, knowing that billions of humans across hundreds of colonies were watching her now. "People of Earth and all human territories," she began. 72 hours ago, we offered the Empire a chance for peace. We asked only for justice, for those who murdered our children to face fair judgment under our laws." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "They refused. They called our fleet a lie. They called our grief weakness. They believe that we are insects to be crushed beneath their feet." Her eyes hardened. "Today, we show them the truth." She turned to, "Send the signal, wake the fleet." In systems scattered across the sector, things began to move in the darkness. Ships that had waited for decades suddenly powered up. Engines that had never fired roared to life. Navigation systems calculated jump coordinates that had been programmed years ago. In the Orion Nebula, a cloud of purple and gold gas that tourists sometimes visited for its beauty, 2,000 warships emerged from where they had hidden inside dense matter. Each ship was the size of a small city, covered in weapons that no alien species had ever seen. They moved in perfect formation, their hulls dark against the glowing nebula. In the dead zone, a region of space where old stars had burned out millions of years ago, 3,000 more ships activated. They had been built inside hollowed-out asteroids, assembled piece by crews who lived and died without ever leaving their posts. Now they broke free of their rocky shells and joined the fleet. Similar scenes repeated across human space, from gas giants where ships had hidden in crushing atmospheres, from ice fields at the edges of dead systems, from stations disguised as mining operations or research facilities. The silent fleet woke, and the galaxy trembled. The first indication that something was wrong came from their border stations. Sensors detected massive energy signatures appearing out of nowhere. Ships that had not existed moments before were suddenly filling space with their presence. "This is impossible," Admiral said as he stared at the tactical display aboard his flagship. He commanded the Third Fleet, 500 of their most powerful warships. He had expected to face perhaps a few dozen human vessels. Instead, his sensors showed over 3,000 contacts, and more were arriving every second. "All ships battle stations," he ordered. "Form defensive line, we." "Admiral," his sensor officer interrupted. "Additional contacts, many additional contacts. They are coming from everywhere." The display updated. The number of human ships continued to climb. 4,000, 5,000, 8,000. felt something he had not felt in decades of military service: fear. "Send a message to High Command," he said, his voice barely steady. Tell them the humans were not bluffing." On Earth, watched the fleet movements on a massive display that covered an entire wall. Green dots represented human ships, red dots represented forces. The green was overwhelming. "The Third Fleet has detected our approach," reported. "They are forming a defensive line." Expected. What about the civilian evacuation? "All civilians in the path of our advance have been warned. Our ships are broadcasting safe corridors for them to retreat." This was important too. This was what separated humanity from their enemies. They had killed a child to send a message. Humanity would destroy their military without touching their innocent. "Begin Phase 1, she ordered. The human ships moved with precision that the galaxy had never seen. They did not charge wildly at the enemy. They did not waste resources on displays of power. They simply flowed around the defenses like water around stones, cutting off supply lines and isolating enemy formations. Admiral tried to respond. He ordered his ships to pursue, to engage, to fight. But every time his vessels moved, the humans were already somewhere else. It was like trying to catch smoke with his hands. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "How do they know where we will be before we get there?" The answer was simple, though he did not know it. For 90 years, humanity had placed sensors and listening posts throughout the galaxy. They knew every major shipping lane, every patrol route, every military protocol that they used. They had watched and waited and learned. And now they were using that knowledge. The first engagement happened 3 hours after the fleet woke. A group of warships, cut off from their main force, tried to make a stand near a small moon. 100 vessels against 600 human ships. The battle lasted 4 minutes. Human weapons were something new. They did not fire plasma or energy beams like most galactic weapons. Instead, they used kinetic projectiles accelerated to near light speed. Small pieces of metal that carried more destructive power than any explosive. The shields, designed to absorb energy, were useless against pure physical force. The human ships moved through the wreckage without stopping. They did not celebrate. They did not taunt their enemies over communication channels. They simply continued their mission, cold and efficient and utterly unstoppable. News of the battle reached the High Command within hours. The High Chancellor, who had dismissed the human fleet as a lie, found himself unable to speak as he watched the reports come in. "They destroyed 100 ships in 4 minutes, his military advisor said, "without losing a single vessel of their own." "This cannot be happening," the Chancellor whispered. "It is happening, and they are not stopping. Our intelligence suggests they are heading for the system." The Chancellor's 4 eyes went wide. The system was home to their largest military base. It was where High Commander himself was stationed. It was the heart of military power. "Send everything we have," the Chancellor ordered. "Every ship, every soldier, stop them." But deep down, he knew it would not be enough. He had looked at the human fleet numbers. He had seen what their weapons could do. The Empire had ruled this sector for 1,000 years, had conquered species and claimed worlds, and built an empire that seemed unbeatable. Now they faced something they had never encountered before. A species that had hidden its strength while building relationships. A species that had waited patiently while others underestimated them. A species that had been kind because it chose to be, not because it had to be. And now that kindness was gone. Aboard the flagship where remained prisoner, the crew began to panic. They had heard the reports. They knew the human fleet was coming. Some tried to maintain their duty, but fear was spreading through the ship like a disease. A young officer, barely more than a recruit, was assigned to guard the human prisoners. His name was, and he had joined the military to bring honor to his family. Now he stood outside the cell block, listening to the alarms and the shouting and the sound of a fleet that had seemed invincible beginning to crumble. He looked through the window of cell. The human had not moved in days. He simply sat there, staring at nothing. Why? Asked suddenly. He did not know why he spoke. Perhaps he needed to understand. Why did you hide your strength? Why pretend to be weak? Looked up. His eyes, which had been empty, now held something that made step back. Because we are not like you, said. His voice was rough from disuse. We do not measure ourselves by how many we can destroy. We measure ourselves by how many we can protect. But you are destroying us now. Yes, stood slowly. He walked to the window of his cell and looked at the young guard. Your empire murdered my daughter, an innocent child who had never hurt anyone, who believed that the universe was full of wonders worth exploring. Said nothing. We gave you a chance, continued. We asked only for justice. Your leaders refused. They thought our mercy was weakness. They were wrong. The ship shook as something exploded nearby, grabbed the wall to steady himself. We are going to tear your empire apart, said. Not because we enjoy destruction, not because we want power, but because you need to learn that there are some things you do not do, some lines you do not cross, some species you do not threaten. Another explosion closer this time. The lights flickered. And when it is over, when your fleets are dust and your military is broken, we will offer peace again. Because that is who we are. We are humans. We build, we heal, we protect. His eyes met through the glass. But first we teach. The ship lurched violently and ran to his post, leaving alone in his cell. But for the first time since death, something like purpose filled the ambassador's heart. His daughter was gone. Nothing would change that, but her death would not be meaningless. It would be the moment when humanity stopped hiding, the moment when the galaxy learned that kindness and strength could exist in the same heart, the moment when Earth was unleashed. Lieutenant had been a soldier for 15 years. She had trained in secret facilities hidden beneath Earth's oceans. She had learned to pilot warships that officially did not exist. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for a war she hoped would never come. Now that war had arrived, and she was leading the assault on Prime. Her ship, the Vengeance, was one of the newer vessels in the Silent Fleet. It carried a crew of 200 and enough firepower to level a small moon. Around her, 30 more ships of similar size moved in perfect formation, cutting through space toward the heart of the Empire. Status report, she ordered from her command chair. Enemy fleet detected ahead, her tactical officer, a man named, replied. Approximately 800 vessels. They have formed a defensive sphere around the planet. Studied the display. 800 ships was a significant force, the largest that had gathered in one place. They were making their final stand here at their home system with everything they had left. It would not be enough. Open a channel to the fleet, she said. Channel open. All ships, this is Lieutenant, we have our orders. Disable enemy military installations. Destroy warships that engage us. No civilian targets. I repeat, no civilian targets. We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. Let us show them the difference. The acknowledgments came back from every ship in her command. Closed the channel and leaned forward in her chair. Take us in. The battle for Prime would be studied by military academies across the galaxy for centuries to come. It was a perfect example of how a technologically superior force could dismantle a larger enemy through precision and coordination. The human ships did not attack in a mass charge. Instead, they split into small groups, each targeting specific defensive positions. They moved through the formation like surgeons, cutting away weapons platforms and shield generators while leaving transport ships and civilian stations untouched. Admiral watched the battle from his command station on the planet's surface. He was the one who had murdered, the one who had thought it would be a simple message to a weak species. Now he stood in his war room, surrounded by officers who looked at him with eyes full of fear and blame. "They are targeting our orbital defense grid," one of his commanders reported. "Stations 7 through 15 are offline. Our fleet is being pushed back." "Then push harder," shouted. "We have 800 ships, they have 30. "Sir, we have received reports from across the sector. This is not their only attack group. Human fleets are engaging our forces everywhere. Our reinforcements are not coming. They are fighting for their own survival." Slammed his fist against the console. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were insects, primitives. They built hospitals and schools while real civilizations built empires. They talked about peace and cooperation while strong species took what they wanted. How had everything gone so wrong? In orbit, Lieutenant guided her fleet through the chaos of battle. The ships fought bravely. She had to give them that. They threw themselves at the human vessels with desperate courage, trying to break through, trying to protect their home. But courage was not enough. "Enemy battleship at bearing 275, called out. "It is attempting to flank us." "I see it. Weapons target their engine section. One shot." The Vengeance fired. A single kinetic round, smaller than a human fist but traveling at half the speed of light, struck the battleship. The impact was invisible to the naked eye, but the result was not. The enemy ship's engines exploded, leaving the vessel drifting and helpless. Target disabled. No life signs lost. They are evacuating to escape pods. This was the human way of war. Destroy the machines. Spare the lives. Show the enemy that you could kill them all but chose not to. It was a message just as powerful as any weapon. One by one, the ships fell. Not destroyed, but disabled. Their weapons were gone, their engines were dead, their crews were abandoning ship. Within 4 hours, the mighty fleet that had defended Prime was reduced to drifting wreckage. "Orbital space is secure," reported. "What are your orders?" Looked at the planet below. A world of 3 billion citizens. Families, children, workers, teachers. People who had nothing to do with the murder of a human child. "Begin surgical strikes on military installations," she ordered. "Bases, weapons factories, fleet yards. Leave everything else standing." The ground assault was equally precise. Human descended from orbit, carrying soldiers and equipment. They landed near military bases and gave the defenders one chance to surrender. Those who did were taken prisoner. Those who did not were dealt with quickly and efficiently. His war room shook as explosions rocked the base around him. His guards were gone. His officers had fled. He stood alone, watching the displays show red lights spreading across his world as human forces systematically destroyed everything the military had built. The door opened, and human soldiers entered. They wore black armor and carried weapons that had never seen before. They moved with the calm confidence of professionals who knew exactly what they were doing. "High Commander," one of them said, "by order of Earth's military command, you are under arrest for the murder of Park and crimes against humanity." Laughed. It was a broken sound, full of disbelief and rage. "Murder? She was just a human child. One life among billions. Why does it matter so much to you?" The soldier who had spoken removed her helmet. She was young, perhaps 30 years old, with short black hair and cold eyes. Her name tag read Specialist. "Because every life matters," said. "That is what separates us from you. You saw her as nothing. We saw her as everything." She signaled to her team and they moved forward to secure. He did not resist. There was no point anymore. As they led him out of the war room, added one more thing. "You wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Congratulations. You did. You taught us that we were right to build the silent fleet, right to prepare for creatures like you, right to hope for peace but plan for war." She put her helmet back on. "The galaxy will remember this day, not as the day the Empire fell, but as the day humanity stopped hiding." Across the galaxy, the other engagements were finishing. Every major military installation had been targeted and disabled. Their fleet, which had numbered in the thousands, was reduced to scattered survivors. Their empire, which had dominated the sector for a millennium, was broken. But the humans did not invade civilian areas. They did not occupy cities or take territory. They simply completed their military objectives and then stopped. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. They had expected humanity to be destroyed. Instead, they saw the military dismantled in less than a week. 7 days to defeat an empire that had stood for 1,000 years. The delegate spoke first. This changes everything, the balance of power, the entire structure of the galaxy. They could have killed everyone, another delegate whispered. They had the power to wipe out the entire species, but they did not. Why? The representative asked. He was one of the few who had not fled. He sat in his seat, broken and confused. Why show mercy now, after what we did? No one had an answer, but Admiral would provide one soon enough. On Prime, Lieutenant walked through the ruins of a military base. Her soldiers were securing prisoners and collecting intelligence. Around her, the planet was quiet. No more explosions, no more fighting, just the eerie stillness that follows the end of a war. She found a communication terminal that still worked and sent a message back to Earth. This is Lieutenant, Prime is secure. High Commander is in custody. Military operations are complete. She paused, looking out at the sky where human warships hung in orbit like silent guardians, awaiting further orders. On Earth, received the message in her command center. Around her, officers were cheering, embracing each other, celebrating a victory that had seemed impossible just days ago, but did not celebrate. She stood quietly, looking at the reports coming in from across the sector. Ambassador approached her. It is done. The military is destroyed. Their empire is finished. What happens now? Took a deep breath. Now comes the hard part. We showed them our strength. We proved that we could crush them if we wanted to, but destroying is easy. Anyone can destroy. The real test is what we do next. And what do we do next? Turned to face him. Her eyes, which had been hard as steel for days, now showed something softer, something that had never completely died, even in the darkest moments. We rebuild, we help them recover. We show them that humanity is not just strong, we are also kind, that our mercy is not weakness but choice, that we would rather build than destroy, even when destruction would be easier. Stared at her, after what they did, especially after, his voice cracked slightly. Do you think this is what she would have wanted? A galaxy filled with hate and fear, more children dying in more wars. She loved the stars. She believed they were full of wonders. I will not let her memory be about death. I will make it about hope. She straightened her shoulders and turned back to her command center. Contact the Galactic Council. Tell them the war is over. Tell them humanity is ready to talk about peace. Nodded slowly. He had known for 30 years, had watched her grow from a young officer into the most powerful military leader humanity had ever produced. He had seen her make impossible decisions and carry impossible burdens. But this was the moment that would define her, the moment that would define humanity. I will make the call, he said. As he walked away, allowed herself one moment of private grief. She thought of her smile, of her dreams of flying among the stars. She thought of, still a prisoner on a ship, not yet knowing that his daughter's death had changed the galaxy. I am sorry, she whispered to no one. I am sorry we could not save her, but I promise her death will mean something. It will be the beginning of something better. Outside, the sun was rising over Earth. A new day for humanity, a new chapter in their history among the stars. The war was over, the healing could begin. The trial of High Commander took place on Earth, in the Great Hall of Justice in Seoul. Representatives from every species in the Galactic Council were invited to witness it. Most of them came. driven by curiosity or fear, or the simple need to understand what humanity had become. Stood in a glass cage at the center of the hall. He wore simple gray clothes instead of his military uniform. His 4 eyes, once filled with contempt and pride, now showed only emptiness. He was a broken creature, a symbol of an empire that had fallen. The judges were human, 3 of them, chosen for their wisdom and fairness. They sat on a raised platform, their faces serious as they listened to the evidence presented against the accused. Sat in the front row of the gallery. He had been rescued from the flagship 3 days after the war ended. Human soldiers had found him in his cell, thin and weak but alive. They had brought him home, and the first thing he had done was visit his daughter's grave. Now he sat in this courtroom, watching the being who had murdered his child face judgment. Part of him wanted to hate. Part of him wanted to scream for revenge, for blood, for the pain that filled every moment of his existence. But another part, the part that had loved, wanted something else. Justice, true justice, not the kind that destroys but the kind that heals. The lead judge, an elderly woman named, spoke with a voice that carried to every corner of the hall. High Commander, you have been found guilty of murder, crimes against humanity, and violations of galactic law. The evidence is clear and undeniable. You ordered and personally participated in the execution of an 8-year-old child for no reason other than to terrorize her species. Said nothing. He simply stared straight ahead as if he were already dead. Under our laws, such crimes carry the penalty of death, Judge continued. Many on Earth have demanded that you receive this punishment. They believe that taking your life is the only appropriate response to the life you took. She paused, and the hall fell completely silent. However, humanity has chosen a different path. We do not believe that killing you will bring back Park. We do not believe that your death will heal the wounds you have caused. We believe that true justice requires something more difficult than revenge. She leaned forward, her eyes meeting. You are sentenced to life imprisonment, but your prison will not be a cell. It will be service. You will spend the rest of your existence helping to rebuild what you destroyed. You will work in hospitals healing the wounded. You will assist in feeding the hungry. You will see, every day for the rest of your life, the consequences of violence and the power of mercy. His eyes widened. This was not what he had expected. He had prepared himself for death, had almost welcomed it. But this was something far more terrible to a warrior like him. You wanted to prove that humans were weak, the judge said. Instead, you will learn what true strength looks like. It is not in taking lives. It is in sparing them. It is in building rather than destroying. It is in choosing hope over hate. She raised her gavel. This sentence is final. May you live long enough to understand what you have done and what you could have been. The gavel fell, guards led away, and in the gallery lowered his head and wept. They were not tears of rage or satisfaction. They were tears of release. Finally, after weeks of darkness, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt pride in his species, pride in what humanity had chosen to become. Would have approved. 1 month later, the Galactic Council held a special session. Every species that had a seat sent their highest representatives. The chamber was packed, and billions more watched on broadcasts across the galaxy. Admiral stood at the central podium. She no longer wore her military uniform. Instead, she wore the simple black clothes of a civilian. Behind her, a holographic image showed the galaxy, with all its stars and species and possibilities. Thank you for coming, she began. I know that many of you are uncertain about humanity now. You have seen what we can do. You have watched us defeat an empire in 7 days. You are afraid of us, and I understand why. She paused, looking out at the assembled delegates. 90 years ago, when we first reached the stars, we faced a choice. We could have followed the path of conquest. We had the technology. We had the resources. We could have built our empire, taken what we wanted, dominated those weaker than us. But we chose differently. We chose to be peaceful, to cooperate, to hide our strength and hope that we would never need it. Some of you thought we were fools. Some of you thought we were weak. One species decided to test that belief by murdering a child. Her voice hardened. Now you know the truth. We are not weak. We never were. We simply believe that power without restraint is meaningless. That strength without mercy is just cruelty by another name. That the measure of a civilization is not what it can destroy but what it can create. She touched a control, and the holographic image changed. It showed Prime, not as a war zone but as it looked now, with human ships delivering supplies and human engineers helping to rebuild. We defeated the Empire. We had every right to occupy their worlds, to take their resources, to enslave their people as punishment for what they did. Instead, we are helping them recover. We are sharing our technology. We are teaching their children and healing their wounded. The delegates murmured among themselves. This was not the behavior of a conqueror. This was something new. Because that is who we are, continued. We are humans. We love our families. We protect our children. We build communities and create art and dream of better futures. We go to war only when we must, and when it is over, we extend our hands in peace. She stepped away from the podium and walked to the edge of the platform, closer to the assembled species. I am here today to make a promise to every civilization in this galaxy. Humanity will not seek conquest. We will not build an empire. We will continue to be the partners and friends we have always tried to be. Our fleet will return to its hiding places, and we will hope once again that we never need it. Her eyes swept across the room. But let me be absolutely clear. If anyone threatens our children again, we will respond, not with measured force, not with diplomatic protests, with everything we have. This is not a threat. It is a fact. Our children are sacred to us. Their lives matter more than territory or resources or power, and we will do anything, absolutely anything, to protect them. She straightened her shoulders. The choice is yours. You can see us as a threat and live in fear. Or you can see us as what we truly are, a species that wants to build a better galaxy alongside you. We offer friendship. We offer cooperation. We offer hope. Her voice softened. That is what Park would have wanted. She believed in the beauty of the stars, in the possibility of meeting new friends among them. Her dream was not revenge. It was wonder, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that dream real. She turned and walked back to the podium. Thank you. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, the delegate began to applaud. Others joined, then more, until the sound filled the great hall like thunder. Not everyone clapped. Some species still looked at humanity with suspicion and fear, but that was understandable. Trust would take time to rebuild. The important thing was that the opportunity existed. After the session, found on the observation deck of the station, she stood alone, looking out at the stars. That was a beautiful speech, he said, joining her. It was the truth, she replied. Or at least I hope it was. I hope we can be what I promised. We can, stood beside her two people shaped by the same tragedy. Would have believed in us. She always believed in people, even when they did not deserve it. Nodded slowly. I think about her often, about what she might have become. A pilot, you said, flying among the stars. That was her dream. Then we will make it happen. Not for her since she is gone, but for others like her. For children who look at the stars and see adventure instead of danger. For young people who want to explore instead of conquer. She turned to face him. We are naming a new program after her. The Initiative. It will train young pilots from every species, humans and aliens together. They will explore the unknown parts of the galaxy. They will make first contact with new civilizations. They will do what she would have done if she had lived. Felt tears forming in his eyes. She would have loved that. I know, reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. "I am sorry, Ambassador. I am sorry we could not save her. I am sorry that my warnings came too late and my fleet could not protect her." "It was not your fault," wiped his eyes. "It was the fault of those who chose violence over peace, and they have faced justice. Now all we can do is move forward and try to build the future she deserved." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Below them, on 100 worlds, humans and aliens were beginning to work together again. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Respect, understanding, the knowledge that humanity was not the simple species they had appeared to be. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed. The Empire signed treaties that limited their military and required them to pay reparations. Other species that had been considering aggression against humanity quietly abandoned their plans. The silent fleet remained hidden, waiting, but everyone knew it was there. And slowly, carefully, the wounds began to heal. Returned to his work as a diplomat, but he was different now, stronger, wiser. He carried his grief with him always, but he did not let it consume him. Instead, he used it as fuel for his mission, to build bridges between species, to prevent other families from suffering what he had suffered. He kept a photograph of on his desk. In it, she was smiling, her eyes bright with joy, her arms full of the small rocks she loved to collect from different worlds. Every morning, he looked at that photograph and made a silent promise. "I will make you proud," he whispered. "I will help build the galaxy you dreamed of. And one day, when my work is done and I join you among the stars, I will tell you everything. I will tell you about the friends we made, the worlds we explored, the peace we built. And you will smile because you always knew that the universe was full of wonders." He picked up his work and began another day. Outside his window, ships carried travelers between worlds. Children laughed and played and looked up at the stars with hope. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not to be threatened, but more importantly, humanity had proven something to itself. They could be strong without being cruel. They could win wars without losing their souls. They could face the darkness and choose light. Park had died, but her legacy lived on in every hand extended in friendship, every child given a chance to dream, every star that shone with the promise of tomorrow. Earth had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same.